Hello and welcome to another episode of Psypris' Asylum. This is our 5th podcast, and therefore I'm going to start getting into more debate topics, starting with professional cosplayers. Are they ruining cosplay or enhancing it? Now, I will start off saying that this is a very opinionated topic, and I'm certain about half of you are going to disagree with me, and that's okay, as long as we keep the discussion respectful. So, there are quite a few professional cosplayers out there, but I'm pretty sure if we all made a list, 2 names would appear the most often, Yaya Han and Jessica Nigiri. A few others include David Carpenter of Evil FX, Vampy Bitney, Volpin Props, Ivy Doomkitty, Dankwish, Nicole Murray Jean, and the late Justin Costello. I wanted to start by addressing the theory that a professional cosplayer cannot exist, as stated in a blog article on queenofthenerds.net. Now she states, "You can't dress up as a character and be a professional at it. Getting dressed is not a profession. However, the definition of a professional is a person engaged in a specific activity as one's main paid occupation rather than as a pastime. In other words, getting paid for something that would otherwise be a hobby." Queen also argues that you get dressed every day, but does anyone pay you to stand around in your clothes? Of course not. And I yet again feel the need to mention the character performers at venues such as Disney World. The actor is, in fact, being paid to put on clothes and stand around. Not only that, but she must also, dare I say, play in costume. So whether you agree that a person can actually be a professional cosplayer or just a very specifically genred model, I think it is fact that there are certain people who make a living off of cosplay. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? Well, as with all things, it depends on your perspective. Cosplay commissioners are generally accepted as being beneficial. They can produce costumes, props, and accessories that less crafty people would be able to do, therefore encouraging more people to cosplay and prompting those who make their own costumes to improve their own skills. While the idea of buying your costume could be seen as cheating, no one can deny that the bar has been raised on the quality of our hobby. For those who want to discuss buying versus making, you're in luck because that's the topic for episode 6. Moving on for now, we're focusing on those who seem to make money off of being famous for the work that they've done specifically for themselves, not commissioned work for others. The idea that one person could be well known for cosplaying a character that thousands of other people have also done seems a bit arbitrary, and certainly the disdain could stem from some sort of envy, a "why can't that be me" thought. We as a society seem to put famous people on a pedestal and treat them as though they are better than average. Merging one's hobby with this mentality is naturally going to ruffle some feathers. But is that a good enough reason to say that professional cosplayers are ruining the hobby? One of the most well-known incidents, I might say, is the sci-fi production Heroes of Cosplay. A show that could have potentially shown the true heart behind the hobby, instead centered on drama and competition. But hey, reality TV sells, documentaries don't. Now, I'm not going to dive into this can of worms. I probably could, and I might in the future. But for now, I'm going to leave the success or failure of the show ambiguous, and instead just mention 2 lines of thought. There were quite a few in the cosplay fandom that were angered, saddened, and or embarrassed by the portrayal of what costuming was. However, I myself was personally approached by non-cosplayers who thoroughly and honestly enjoyed the show and had more of a respect and understanding of the hobby from watching it. The takeaway impression they had was that it was super cool that people made their own costumes and got together to show them off. They didn't seem to pick up on the cattiness or elitism that most of the fandom seemed to focus on when watching the show themselves. So, is it really the professional cosplayers that the community has a problem with, or the fact that the fandom is becoming more mainstream? BuzzFeed's Try Guys recently did a 4-episode special on cosplay, which I highly recommend because it was respectful and silly all at the same time. But the point I'm trying to make with this is that BuzzFeed is a generic comedy outlet and not geared specifically towards nerds or geeks. A few years ago, I would walk into a fabric store and pray no one asked me what I was working on because the conversations always turned awkward very quickly. Now they actually assume it's a costume, no matter what time of year. Living in Atlanta, Georgia, I have the added perk that just about everyone knows what DragonCon is, and it's a perfectly acceptable answer to give normies, even if it is February and DragonCon isn't for another 7 months, which isn't actually a ridiculous time frame for making a costume, but I usually make mine in the same month of the con. Now, it's debatable if those like Yaya are to thank for this change in the winds or if it's a natural occurrence, since other fandoms such as superhero movies and video games are becoming more prevalent. It's just one possible outcome of having professional cosplayers. Another issue people tend to have with professional cosplayers is the idea that they really are just merely models. Certainly there is truth to this. It's impossible for everyone to see the costume in person, and even the average cosplayer loves a photoshoot to capture their hard work. However, these pros do not tend to act in character, since their presence at a convention is more to see them as a personality and not the character they are portraying, the very hobby that earned them their fame. But cosplay itself is a very personal thing, and people do it for many different reasons. Going back to episode 2, there are plenty who believe that acting or portraying the character is not necessary. To attack these professionals over this idea, we would then have to solidify the specific definition of cosplay, which, if you've ever been in such a discussion, is virtually impossible to do. So if the issue is not that they aren't portraying the characters, what is it? The most common arguments I've seen are that they are either fake geeks or just plain fake. The idea that getting breast implants removes the right to have respect for a woman is utterly ridiculous. It is possible that these women got breast implants solely to receive attention, certainly. But is that the only reason for plastic surgery? Of course not. Society has placed such a focus on the beauty of woman that even the naturally gifted are left feeling inadequate. There are also mental illnesses, such as body dysmorphic disorder, that might cause one to become obsessed with their physical attributes. Whatever the reason these women might have had, the mere fact of having breast augmentations done does not mean the women themselves are fake or any less intelligent and down to earth. In fact, their success as professional cosplayers could be used in their defense. Running your own business is tough and definitely takes marketing and business savvy. So then, are they fake geeks? Anyone who spends time, money, and energy to attend a convention is not faking. They might not have read every comic book in existence, but no one has the right to specify if someone is or is not a fan of a particular brand or series. No one has to prove themselves to anyone, not even professional cosplayers. I know it sounds like I'm heavily supportive of professional cosplayers, and that's not entirely the case. I too have an issue when they take non-sexual characters and portray them in a sexual manner, especially when it wouldn't fit said character's personality. Taking a tomboy and putting her in overly feminine lingerie just isn't believable. And removing pants or a shirt from a costume just to show more skin is definitely not necessary. But these women are running a business, and there's no denying that sex sells. They cater to their viewership, and their followers tend to be healthy young men who enjoy, well, healthy young women. And with a few exceptions, these cosplayers make their own costumes. Telling them they can't do something is no different than telling the average cosplayer that they cannot do something. And that is teetering on the edge of slut-shaming. Everyone wants to feel attractive, and if you're already going to pose for pictures, you might as well do what makes you feel good, right? Now, I know I just focused mostly on the female cosplayers, but the male cosplayers tend not to have the same issues that the professional women do as far as being attacked for being fake. I don't really want to get into that discussion of feminism and Gamergate and all that stuff. I am not touching that with a 10-inch pole unless you guys really, really, really want me to. But I was more just focusing on what is prevalent in the community right now. And for the most part, professional cosplayers tend to be women, and those women tend to be the most attacked. In closing, I don't actually really follow professional cosplayers all that closely. I do follow a few cosplay groups, but they are still considered hobbyists. However, the professionals that I have met have always been very sweet and intelligent, and I obviously don't have the same issues with them as others might. So with all that said, I ask again, do professional cosplayers ruin or aid the community? I really can't think of how they ruin the hobby for anyone. Cosplay is so personal that what someone else does shouldn't play a part in how you feel about it. And while I can make the defense that professional cosplayers aid the community, it's certainly not proven that they had anything to do with the hobby becoming more mainstream. So I guess after all that's said and done, I come down to being neutral. I don't think professional cosplayers help, but I definitely don't think they hurt the community. But let me know what you think by emailing me at psyprisasylum@gmail.com. Until then, stay crazy.